Hello guys, good morning. This morning we're going to do a quick tip, about 10 to 20 minutes on form. We're going to talk from the point of view of the painter. So this is form for painters, or anyway how we display form for mass when we're working in mass. Okay, and I'm going to talk about two things. One, the understanding of the pieces that go into it, and particularly the size and placement of our values, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to come back to these in just a minute. But again, the understanding of form, today we're going to talk about the size and placement of our 4 values. We're going to talk about our edge sequences, and we're going to talk about open edges. So the size and placement of values, the size and placement of edge sequences, the size and placement of open edges. Those are the things I want you concentrating on. Like, oh, that's a number 1 value. Where does that go? How big is it? Where does it belong on there? Number 2. Okay, and the second thing we're going to talk about after we cover this is also the process. Just how do you do that in charcoal today? And later, next week or this weekend, we'll do it in paint. Okay, we're going to talk. Then I'm going to give you a general form. And then we're going to talk specifically about our apple. So, now that we know what we're up to, let's get going. So on form, the size and placement of our values. So our highest value or lightest value is our highlight, and that is represented with our white chalk or white Conte or white charcoal or white pastel, whatever white you're using. The lightest value is right there. So that value equals 1, right? So 1 and white are the same thing as far as you and I are concerned. Our light then is actually just going to be the tone of the paper. And the background will be our vine charcoal. Now our vine charcoal, although when we first put it down, can look quite dark. With a little rub, so that'll be the value of our background, or number 3 value. And then we have our dark. So then instead of the vine charcoal, we have some regular charcoal, which is going to be darker. Okay, so again, I really need you guys thinking in terms of 1 value, 2 value, 3 value, and 4 value. Okay? Then for edge sequences, when we're talking about form, there's going to be a hard edge at the start. It will transition from light to shadow, will be a soft edge, and we're going to end with a hard edge. So something like that. And soft edges are a thing in themselves. So hard, soft, hard. Okay? And then our open edges. If this is our sphere, if our light is coming in like this, it's going to make shadow like this. Now at some point around this, our light is going to meet our shadow. And where is that? And wherever that is, that's a good place to open the edges. And then our air, if that was our air, is going to run right through there and just completely open that and let that be the same. In paint, it'll just be an influence, but right now we can have it exactly the same. Okay, so that's our understanding. We're working for painters or in mass, not line. So as a painter, rather than drawing, and we're going to take 4 values, a highlight, the white, the tone of the paper is going to be our light, the background is our air, and the dark, the gray is our background and air, and the dark is our shadow. Okay, again, it seems very simple. It seems very simple, but it's important how these go. By the way, these 4 values are not something we look at the photograph and copy. These are pieces that we're going to use to design dark and light shapes to read as form. So again, do not copy, design, create. Okay, so let's look at the process. And first, I want to talk about just form as general. So here we're just going to talk as a general circle, generic universal circle. And then over here, we'll talk more about the apple. Okay? And that's what I mean by general versus specific. So generally speaking, the first step we're going to do is with our vine charcoal. Sometimes I even take my stump, which can be a little bit dirty. And how big do I want this on my page? So at this point, I'm feeling out the entire mass. Right? I want to see basically the whole thing. I don't want to see the contour, but I want to feel the whole thing. And just so you guys can see, let's make sure that we do this big enough. So I wouldn't put something this big on a page, but all right, so I can go around, I can feel around, but this whole thing's going to be about this big. Once I know that, I like to start with my vine charcoal, again, because it's forgiving. And what kind of shadow are we going to have? Now, remember how we ended? We ended with a hard edge, but we transitioned with a soft edge. So this mark is going to go from a hard edge to a soft edge. For that reason, I do not want to start this shadow in here, because that's going to give me a hard edge. So just inside the contours where I start. Why inside the contour? Because I get to warm up, and then slowly I can just adjust out to find the outside of it. Rather than trying with my first mark, okay, that's the outside of it. Well, what if you were wrong? Now you got to go, what if it's really in here? What are you going to do with that dark mark? Huh? What are you going to do with that dark? Remember, we're talking about the process. And this process is for efficiency. So, start just inside where you think you want it and push it out. And again, I'm not going to rush to get this as big as I think it needs to be. Right? Because I can slowly push it. And as I push out, guess what I'm doing? Less pressure, less pressure, less pressure. And then I know I want this to flow out to the air. So I keep going. And that air value is what's going to give me the other side where I need my hard edge. And that's going to flow right back into here. Okay, and then all of our background. Right, and let's call our background even our table. So everything around here, let's just go gray. And as we do that, do you see that where we're looking already is at the light of that sphere? So we're getting you to focus on the object, which is number 1. And of course, this is our gray, so we want that less than our shadow. And then I can use this again to carve that hard edge. Because remember, I haven't really used my dark charcoal there yet. So even if I ran that through like this a little bit, I can still come back and get that edge. And this is real important. I want to be, because I need a hard edge over here. So don't be too sloppy. Here, we got to slow down. You know, back here I can go a little faster. But up as we get to these critical parts, slow down a little bit. Okay, then we're going to go straight through. Remember, I'll just straight through. And straight through. You can use your eraser to come really talk about the hard edge of the beginning of that. And remove any smudges or anything. So again, where's your eye going? Here. Is it kind of going there? No, it's really going there. All right, so now that we've got those pieces in, let us come back to our shadow. And you remember how we did it the first time? We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start right inside and dark, and then I can push out to find my edge. Inside, then push out to find that edge. Inside, and then push out to find that edge. Working on the inside, and then pushing out to find my edge. And again, have I gone all the way up to the white of the paper? No. I've left a space of gray in there, of background. Background, dark. We want them to be clearly separated. Okay, now, of course, we've got a cast shadow on the table. So we have light, which is basically a ball in itself, with a hard edge. The light's going to go, and it's going to hit a soft edge on this side. An open edge there, an open edge here. Now try to avoid getting your shadow to go from lighter to darker. You just want the shade in there to be a transition. Hard, soft, hard. Okay, the final piece then is the highlight, which we can think about this as a top plane here, right, going across, and a side plane right here. And on the corner of that top plane and the side plane, in away from the edge, we're going to put our highlight. The purpose of the highlight, that looks like that might be a little high, but it's all good. is to take your focus off of this hard edge. Right? We need a hard edge there, but we don't want you focusing there. If you focus on the edge, this thing will look flat. If you focus on the center, it will look round. Okay? So one last point on this. We're obviously in front of the object here, right? And we're obviously on the object here. Okay, great. So we're done. We have no reason to go behind that object. But if we gave them a reason to go behind the object, that's going to create even more of a feeling of depth. So right behind the shadow, if I lighten it up just a bit, that's going to draw your eye back into that space, and instantly you're going to have more depth and be able to reach around that form. You know, hey, go over in the back side of that ball and just give it a little push for me, will you? Oh, sure, no problem. Right? You want the viewer to think that they can reach right around that. The highlight makes it round. Hard, soft, hard also does it. And then the open edges keeps it from feeling kind of locked up, stiff, plastic. Okay, guys, so that is the general form. Okay, that took about 15 minutes, and that should be the whole process. But I would like to talk specifically about our assignment for the class and that apple. So how would this translate into that apple? So if you guys will remember, that apple had a little bit of a tilt, didn't it? Right? And then the other thing it had is it had bigger shoulders, and this shoulder was high and short, and that shoulder was round, and that came, and then the table is flat, and then it also wasn't all flat on the bottom. Okay, so that's the general contour, and I'm just doing that to show you what I'm doing versus a universal sphere. But basically the same things are going to happen, right? So the first thing I would do would be kind of just fill the mass in. And then let's limit it with like parentheses. So this is going to be higher. And then that'll be a little bit lower. Where do we want to land at? And so the contour is a little bit different, but the idea is the same. Start inside and push out. Start inside and push out. And is this going to be our open edge? We'll go ahead and push through that. Right? And if we want, oops, look, there's our air. There's our air. And then let's come back and get our light. Remember, we want a hard edge. Notice I don't want that dark line running up there. I want that gray to run into the light. And if you draw a line around it, you're going to have that hard edge. And we want to avoid that. Okay, so this has a top too, and that top, that light will run across the top of that. So it won't go all the way up there. Okay. So let us got our shoulder, it's going to come down. For a soft edge there, we want that to be open here. Through, you say through, don't go when you're trying to soften that edge. Go through. Here we want to stop. Here we want to stop. Here we want an edge. Here we do not. Right? And here we do. And here we do not want an edge. We want that to be able to spill right out. And we want to keep this catching the light. Right? What I mean by catching the light is it's going to go this way, not up and over. All right, we want to do, because what if we leave this, then this is going to be stronger than our little light there, so we're going to focus down here. So we need all of this gray so that we have our focus. And again, you got to slow down when you do this to get these shapes right. Remember our tilt there? We want to come down. We'll leave a little bit of light behind that shadow on the ground. And then where's our highlight go? In the corner of the top plane and the side plane. Away from the edge. And always closer here than here. Why? Because the light hits here and then we turn and we're turning through the air. If you put the highlight right next to the air, that doesn't make any sense. Right? We're going to come up to the closest point. This is the closest point to us. Then as we turn around, we have color. Then we're going through air, right? Can you see that? If I put that highlight right there, that does not work. Now, that's generally a specific apple, but the apple also has a little shadow. It's hard to control this big thing, but we're going to try it anyway. And that shadow has a hard edge here and then a soft edge up top. Can you guys see it happening? Okay, and then these are tiny little shapes, so sometimes it gets a little bit tough, but then we still gotta. And there's a stem, which is gonna have a light and a shadow side. And then guess what? That stem will cast a shadow and let that wrap around. Right? It can't be as dark and as heavy as that. But do you see how, oh wow, and now we've got an apple. Using the same principles as we did over here, but just for the specific shapes. But the same idea holds. All right, are there any questions coming in from anybody? No. Okay, that was pretty quick and straightforward. I know I went a little over the 15 minutes, but I wanted to do a general and a specific. Right, so as you do that, it's real important to have all that. And you can debate whether you want your foreground or your background darker, but generally, you see how this is more than that? Well, that's not good, right? Because this is close, so we need this to be a little bit more. And then as we go back, a little bit less. More. And so the process may take a little while. You see, it's just a little bit at a time. But that adds quite a bit, right? Because again, now we've got a more sense of depth than we did before. And if we weakened that a little bit to indicate almost a halo, that's going to look even more lit up. And back here in the hard edge, if that light's hitting that ground, let it bounce up like it was rain or something, like a particle of water. What if that light was like water and actually bounced off these surfaces? Is that going to create a more interest? Yeah, it's going to create more interest. Then do it. Do it. What do you guys think? Way over your head? Absolutely not. If you said yes, give yourself a spanking. No. You can do this. It is easy. It takes a little practice, but mainly it takes thinking differently. Okay? So good luck on your compositional studies. Let's get those. What is today? Wednesday or Thursday? So you've got tomorrow till noon to get those in. And then we'll see you Friday for Friday feedback. Today, probably tomorrow, I might do a little color study live, but I'll go over that in our Friday group if we miss it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon.